productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund, co-founder of Results Driven Leadership. Welcome to today's show, which is about being direct without being rude, giving people what to get done and having them listen to you. Let me get down into this. It's a situation, this whole bluntness, rudeness, getting to the point. It's a situation many of us hard-charging business leaders find ourselves in. And we often believe that being blunt and straightforward and telling people what they need to do is the key to getting things done. But let me tell you, it can backfire. Here's why. It's the illusion of directness. Picture this. You're in a high-pressure corporate environment, small business environment, startup environment, whatever environment you're in. You got pressure on you. You got to get stuff done. You're juggling deadlines. You've got budgets. You've got ambitious goals. And in your pursuit of excellence, you may find yourself dispensing orders, shooting orders, giving feedback with an iron fist, thinking that it's the most efficient way to navigate your world. You're being direct because you believe that's the leadership method that this situation demands, right? And you're not intending to come across rude, but come on, they need to get after it and do a better job. You don't have time to go around picking up after them and reminding them, following up. You've told them everything they need to do, and for some reason, they ain't doing it. You're a cutting, but they ain't a bleeding. Here's the catch. There's a fine line between being direct and being plain rude. And if you want them to listen and actually follow through and get done what you want them to do, this is the podcast for you. Often, in our quest for efficiency, that can lead us down a path where our words unintentionally hurt, demotivate, or even alienate our employees. And that, my friends, is not the recipe for a thriving workplace, obviously. Let me share a recent encounter. And this is a real world. I've condensed it down a little bit. It's abbreviated a bit, but I think you'll get the point. It's a recent encounter I had in a client's office that will illustrate what many of you can relate to. I'll call it the Mike story. I was visiting this client who was struggling with one of their direct reports, named Mike, obviously. And Mike's an employee who's just not quite hitting the mark. We've all been there, right? We've had Mikes in our life. But here's the catch. Here's the catch, my friends. The company president and the COO are so frustrated. And Mike's poor performance is causing all kinds of customer issues and additional cost. They're using a pretty direct approach. Let's call it the wall banger method. The president and CEO, by the way, are both high Ds on the DISC profile. And D stands for direct, demanding, sometimes disagreeable, certainly dominant. Mike, on the other hand, he's not a high D. And Mike is taking forever, which is the antithesis of a high D. He's taking forever to get things done because patience is not a virtue of a high D or a high I either. DI, really bad combination in the world of patience. And in many days, poor Mike, he's just forgetting to perform some of his essential tasks. And they know he knows how to do it. He's done it. He just forgets to do it. This is in a variety of duties. He's just become very inconsistent. And often when he finally does complete a task or follow through with a duty or responsibility, there's more mistakes than you can shake a stick at. It's like a merry-go-round of blunders. You know what I mean? You've been there, right? Hell, I have. But here's where it gets a little interesting. Mike, who used to be, he's been there a couple years, who used to be attentive, diligent, did his job pretty well. He's morphed into a distant, almost checked out version of himself. For example, when they had meetings, Mike used to jot down notes, but now no writing anything, not a peep out of him. He's like a ghost of his former self. And the history is, the root cause of this is Mike was over promoted. He was over promoted into a role he just doesn't have the competency for. In his old role, Mike was quite competent, quite effective. But now he's got a new role. And it's just not set up for Mike. Not that he can't, but currently he's not fulfilling the responsibilities and needs of this position. Here's the thing. It all made sense at the time. Mike was doing so well. Somebody left in the interest of saving some money. They did a little research and they figured that, hey, we don't need two people. We need Mike. Mike can do both these jobs. So Mike not only has his old job, which was in purchasing, but he now also has the job of overseeing receiving and inventory. Made sense at the time. They're very synergetic, those two responsibilities. And Mike was doing such a great job. Yeah, he can do it. Mike was brought in, discussed it with him. Oh, yeah, he can do it. He felt really good about that. So they gave him a raise. They gave him another job. And they threw him in the deep end of the pool. And Mike was not swimming. He was drowning, and drowning because he did not have the capacity to do both jobs. He didn't have the competency to do both jobs. He did one really well, but he couldn't do them both. He was missing a key component. Nowhere along the line did the company provide him with any discussion or training to strategize how he was to do both jobs, manage both his old job and his new job, how to manage his time in both roles. So Mike's drowning. Mike has no idea how to prioritize. Mike was fighting fires all day, interruptions all day, every day, and that was sinking him. He was going down in the deep end. And the president and COO, they had their method. It's the wall banger method. And the wall banger method, let me tell you, is not quite going to cut it in this situation. Mike, as is the predominance of the population, is a high S. And these company bigwigs, they're just making things worse. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by smashing it with a sledgehammer. Ineffective and noisy. Seriously, the president and the CEO are giving Mike a good old dressing down, telling him what to do, how to do it, why he's failing in his job. They're doing it very directly in their high D method. There's no sugarcoating it. But guess what? It's not working. Not one bit. In fact, it's getting worse at best. When you take that hammer to someone's self-esteem, as they were doing it with Mike, even if you don't realize it, you're sending them into a protective shell. And when you're telling them what to do, when to do it, blah, 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 It's like the wah wah sound from Peanuts characters, their parents on the phone. You remember that? I'm dating myself. All Mike hears is noise. He's just not listening. He's blocking them out. So their will to direct Mike is just bouncing off his self-esteem, like bullets off of Superman's chest. They don't realize this. They think the more they do the thing that's not working, it's eventually going to take hold, and it never will. All the signs are telling them otherwise. They just don't read them. Here's where I come in. They're bringing this to me. We're discussing what's happening. I need to discuss with them. It's very obvious to me from my view what's going on here. And that the way that they're approaching Mike is never going to have the effect they need. And my duty, my responsibility is make sure that the bosses realize that the wall banger method is never going to cut it. It's time for a change. It's a time for a change in them and their approach. You probably heard me talk about the transformational triangle of change. They needed the transformation. And instead of pounding that wall, I discussed with them what was happening with Mike, what was actually happening with Mike, with their approach, and how important it was going to be in order for Mike to listen to them and to get Mike to get on the path that they need him on. They need to approach it in a very different way. They must decide to empathize, simplify, instruct, be involved, structure him, give him a strategy that's going to set him up for success. And instead of harping on poor Mike all day about what he's not doing, work with Mike, help him understand what Mike needs to do. And instead of being an attacking force on Mike's ego, they need to become Mike's guiding light out of the darkness. They must start by talking to Mike in a way that doesn't make him feel attacked. No more. Get down a notch. And to all you leaders out there who are facing this and experience this, you got to think in terms of how Mike is hearing them. Not that you're talking, not what you're telling them, but how Mike is hearing you. Not what you're saying, how he's hearing you. And it's super critical to adopt a non-threatening demeanor. You got to capture your emotion. You got to get it down into, get a lid on it. You got to show empathy. You got to show support. You got to watch your body language a little bit. And even if you suck at that, your words and your tone are critical to making these situations work for you. And if you're in one of these situations and you're using the wall banger method and it's not working, welcome to the club. Lots of people face this. But what you need to be doing, instead of telling him what to do, you need to ask him. Turn your tells into asks. And how do I do that? You need to ask open-ended questions. Who, what, where, when, how, when. Those kind of questions. Get Mike talking. Have him figure his stuff out. Support him. Offer him training. Offer him support. Offer him guidance. Don't threaten him. Not that you're directly threatening, but your approach is very threatening to the Mikes of the world. You need to create a safe space for not only him to hear, but to him to express himself, to bring out of Mike his critical thinking skills so that he can understand what Mike needs to do. As you've heard me say before, many people face this. But it's the fact, it's the reality of human nature is we're much more likely to do what we say we're going to do than what somebody tells us to do. That's the Aikido flip. If you change your methodology to a coaching method and asking open-ended questions, drawing out of your direct report, your peer, whomever it might be, the answers, applying some patience because this takes more time. And I understand that just being direct and telling them what to do, that doesn't take as much time, but it takes longer to get things done because they're not bought into it. They don't understand or they're checked out. The biggest problem with many people's communication is the illusion that you're being heard. You've got to make sure you communicate in a way that they're going to listen to you, that they're going to approach things in a way that their heart and their head are going to be into it. And so back to the story, these bosses, the president, CEO, they must take the role of being a coach for Mike, help Mike find his own solutions. And in doing so, Mike will take ownership of his work. But to get Mike to own it, the bosses must own their part of the situation. This is difficult for a lot of people because you need to say to the Mikes, hey, listen, a lot of your struggles, my fault. I set you up for this. So I'll own my part. I'll make my change with the agreement that you'll put a different level of effort into it to make your change. But it's essential, it's critical, it's non-negotiable that you must admit, in this case, these bosses must admit that this whole situation is due to them. It's not due to Mike. They put Mike in that situation. They didn't give him the necessary training support that he needed. They did not set Mike up for success. They just thought some magic fairy dust was going to make Mike successful. But Mike's not being successful, and they're paying the price for that. So is Mike. But let me tell you, when bosses will allow their egos to accept the blame for how they've set a situation up, a situation that's going poorly, when a leader gets there, you are on your path to glory, my friends. Believe me. Own it. As the old saying goes, there's no bad teams, there's only bad bosses. And I'm not calling any of you bad bosses. I'm saying it that way to make a point. When things are going wrong, it's the boss's fault. And in this case, for the president and COO, it's not about telling him what to do anymore. It's about helping him discover what he needs to do. And realizing you're not the all-knowing guru, you're his partner. Take that approach, take that mindset. We're partners in this. Mike's success is their success. Mike's failure is this failure. And believe me, they're feeling Mike's failures right now. Realize it's always a partnership. Sure, there's a hierarchy, there's a meritocracy, but you, as a leader, in order to get ahead and be more successful, for you in a meritocracy, you've got to get better too. Your people are only as good as your leadership. And one of the key mindsets is your employees or your partners. They are your partners in progress. And so during this encounter, I said, let's do this. I took the time, let's bring Mike in and let me role model this approach, because I got to drink my own Kool-Aid, right? I can't just tell them what to do and expect them to do it. I've got to show them, have them do it, give them a little feedback. So I had to show them, first step. We brought Mike in, and I'm having the bosses just watch how I approach this. I wanted them to see how it works, how easy it is to do it. It's super easy and pleasant. You feel much more rewarded taking the approach that I'm sharing with you. It can be very direct, but in a non-threatening manner. That's the Aikido flip. It requires thought, self-development, patience, but by doing so, we must always embrace that it also takes discipline and commitment, because it's you that has to change. It's us that has to change in order to change them. And the truth is, the president and CEO, both super smart, but they didn't know what they didn't know. That's my job. I have to raise their competency in order to raise Mike's competency. Transformational triangle of change. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. And in changing anything, our habits, our approach to leadership, first thing we have to do is commit to it and then practice it. And we have to practice it perfectly. And you won't be perfect for a while. In the beginning, it's very difficult because it's a big change. It's not your nature. You're changing a habit, one that in some cases has been developed for decades and maybe even rewarded for years, your bluntness and your directness. But here's the good news. If you commit to the change and working on your own self-development, making progress with this, studies have shown that if you perform a new leadership approach 20 times, you're over the hump of difficulty. After you get to about 20 repetitions, it becomes much more natural. What in the beginning is very difficult, you got to think and stop and consider every word you're saying and how you're saying it, and you're going to say it and you're going to catch yourself saying it wrong, and you're going to get mad at yourself for doing it, and you're going to step on yourself. It happens. That's all part of the learning curve. Embrace that. It just takes a little time, but if you commit to it, apply it, it'll work. And guess what? Back to my story, to make a longer story shorter, it worked with Mike. I set it up. I worked with the president and COO. We role played together separately away from Mike. And they sucked. They did. But they got better. And there's this magic of three. After I role play something, I've seen this happen hundreds and hundreds of times. After someone role plays the third time, they're 100% better than the first time. And it worked with these two. And then they started applying it to Mike, and slowly but surely, voila, Mike starts coming out of his shell. He's much more engaged. He's much more willing to listen. He's coming up with solutions. He's applying these solutions. He's much more motivated. He's improving. It's like a breath of fresh air. Didn't have to so much change Mike as they did have to change themselves. And in the end, you as a leader must not only help your Mikes find their way back from where they're at, you've got to develop your own better way of deploying empathy and support. Get rid of the wall banger method. And the lesson is really simple. If you're dealing with a struggling team member and don't want to be the wah, be a coach, be a guide, be a partner in their journey to success. It's not about banging them over their head, banging your head against a wall. It's about simplifying, empathizing, and ultimately succeeding for everyone's benefit. Now that I've set all that up, let's take a little deeper dive into this challenge, communication. Specifically, the age-old conundrum of being too direct, even when you don't realize it, when you don't mean to. It's a situation where us hard-charging business leaders finds ourselves in often. We believe that being blunt, just saying what needs to be said, tell them what to do is the key to getting things done. But let me tell you, it can and often backfires. And here's why. As I mentioned earlier, it's the illusion of directness. It's the illusion. And if you're being direct because you believe that's what leadership demands, here's the catch. There's a fine line between being direct and rude. And often in our quest for efficiency, we go right down the path where our words unintentionally hurt, they demotivate, or they alienate employees. And that, my friends, is not the recipe for a thriving workplace. So enter empathy and my handy little disc tool. Empathy with a disc profile, some science with your own personal development. There's a solution. The solution involves empathy and understanding your employees better through the disc profile. It tells you how your direct report prefers to be communicated with, their effective way of communicating with them. It's a powerful combination that can absolutely revolutionize your leadership style and transform your team's performance. Change you, you'll change them. And empathy is the secret sauce. It's one of the soft skills, empathy. It's one of the secret weapons of all highly successful leaders. It just is. You cannot study a high-level leader who doesn't include that somewhere in their DNA. And it's often about you understanding and changing how you think, your mindset, and putting yourself in your employees' shoes and genuinely understanding their thoughts, feelings, their perspectives. It's not about being soft or compromising your authority. It's about humanizing your leadership style. You take that, combine it with your DISC profile system. That gives you some structure. Instead of guessing, you know how to access their personality and their communication preferences whether they're a high D dominance, high influence, or S steady, C conscientious. Understanding these profiles will allow you to take that empathy and tailor your communication to a better connection with your team members. It's about adapting. I can't really change you. I can improve you by adapting you and your communication style. So here's some other tips for your ability to shift towards a more empathetic and DISC profile aware communication style. Listen actively. Step one, listen. I'm sorry. I'm going to maybe be rude when I say this. Shut up and listen. Ask questions and shut up. Let them talk. It's one of our deepest needs as humans is to be heard. Let them be heard. Get them into the dialogue. Doesn't have to be a monologue. So start by actively listening to your employees. Pay attention to their concerns, listen to their ideas, embrace their feedback without immediately jumping in with your solutions or judgments. That's the hard part because you know better. That's the patience. You may even think they're wrong. Hit the brakes, tap it down a little bit. Just listen to them. Talk it out. Talk it out. I can teach you how to do this. Know their DISC profile. Once you've assessed the individual team or your team members' DISC profiles, then you know how to approach them accordingly. For example, if you're dealing with someone who falls into the high S, as Mike did, steadiness, you've got to take a softer tone. You've got to offer reassurance. And most importantly, you have to offer a very clear step-by-step instructional way of them achieving the job that you expect them to achieve. Very defined. That's what processes and procedures were all built around because the world is primarily made up of high S's. They'll get the job done. They'll take pride in it. They will they'll be loyal and do a super job for you. S stands for super because they're usually super employees, but it's up to you to approach them in a way that they're going to listen and get them into the dialogue. And you do that by asking open-ended questions. Instead of issuing orders, engage your team with open-ended questions. Who, what, why, when, how, tell me, share with me, how was it? Get them to think, get them to share their insights, listen to them. Taking this approach fosters collaboration, a feeling of belonging, a partnership. It makes them feel valued, and it raises the respect they have for you. And secret sauce, it develops their critical thinking skills. You're helping them to solve their own problems by helping them solve their problems. That's what critical thinking is, but they won't do it on their own. It's up to you. And then it's a must. You must provide constructive feedback. But when offering feedback or criticism, use the sandwich method. Start with a positive note, address the issue, end with an encouraging note, especially with the S's. They need to go out of there feeling that it's still safe, they're still okay, they're still valued. If you let them go out of the room with their tail between their legs, feeling like they just had their butts kicked and they're a failure, they will act like a failure. Be encouraging. And by doing so, you maintain the respect they have for you and display the respect you have for them. And when I have respect, I have trust. When I have respect and trust, woo, good things happen. And support them, offer support, and coach them. Show that you're there to help, not point out every mistake they make. You're there to help. You're there to support. pitch in every now and then, coach them through challenges, and encourage them to find their own solutions. And the transformational results, if you do what I just shared with you, incorporating the empathy and the DISC, the listening, all those things, you'll create a work environment that will be super high performing. Your team members will appreciate you. They will see the efforts you're putting into it. And oh, by the way, it's okay to tell your team members you're working on this part of yourself. Ask them for some feedback. It's okay. Allow your ego to get that. Your self-esteem's okay. You're not going to appear weak. You're going to appear human and willing to learn like you want them to willing to learn. They're going to connect with you. You're going to connect with them on a more personal level. And you will see improved performance. So to sum it all up, while there are times where being direct and straightforward can be very effective, absolutely. We've got to evacuate the office. It's on fire. It's crucial to acknowledge that our employees are unique individuals with their own communication preferences. We have to adapt our communication to match their preferences. And by integrating empathy, the insights from DISC, committing to some personal change, business leaders can flex their communication style to align with their team's specific needs. And it's going to demand some patience and certainly effort, commitment, discipline to make this change in yourself. But trust me, the outcomes are incredibly rewarding. And one of the rewards, a more engaged and productive workforce, just to name one. Wouldn't life be easier if everybody wanted to do the job you need them to do? Want to do the job you need them to do. They're bought in instead of wall banging on a regular basis. So the next time you feel the urge to bang your head against the wall and unleash your inner drill sergeant, be overly blunt, pause for a moment, take a breath, and remind yourself that a little empathy can work wonders. Your team will thank you, and so will your organization's bottom line. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanic Show. Thanks once again for tuning in. And remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.